Today what I want to talk about is setting an appointment. Setting an appointment is critical to being able to raise support. It's the key, in my mind, to raising support. To give you a little background on myself, for 40 years I've been in sales. I've had to set up appointments right and left in order to get in front of my prospective clients. And one of the businesses I worked for, I was the top salesman for the whole company. I sold 8 different software packages to hospitals, whereas the norm was 2 or 3. So it was a very good year, and pride reared its ugly head, and I was very proud about it. And the next year, I sold 0 and was let go by the company. So I realized at the time that ego has no place in either setting the appointment or in looking at any types of success that we have, because God is the person who's behind these successes. I had many failures, but I had many successes in that 40-year period. And I want to share with you a little bit of the things that I've learned throughout this whole process. The first step before making the calls is to do what? It's to pray, right? To pray and to be open to God, to say, hey, this terrifies me, making these calls and making these appointments. You know, what if the person says no? Well, you know, God is there to help you. God is there to help you to soften their hearts and to make them see what a tremendous ministry is going to happen through you. As I mentioned before, the most important ingredient contributing to the success or your failure in raising support is what? It's setting the appointment and getting in front of the people. Your goal in setting the appointments, we can look at it in a different number of ways, but I came up with this little chart to be able to show you exactly how you figure how many calls you need. Let's say your budget is $40,000 a year. Let's say you determine that $400 is the average amount that a prospect will give you for the mission. You'll therefore need 100 appointments. 100 appointments divided by, let's say, 1 out of 3 people you meet with is going to support you. That's a 33% success ratio. So you will need 300 appointments to get the job done at $40,000 a year. 300 appointments divided by 28 weeks, let's say you want to do this in 7 months, equals 10 appointments per week. 10 appointments per week, now let's talk about calls, divided by your success ratio in calls, and let's say it's 20%, then you're going to need to make 50 calls per week. 50 calls per week in order to achieve that goal, or 7 calls each day. 10 appointments times 5 minutes per appointment, you can get the job done in 4 hours per week if you can reach the person. So that's the key right there, is in reaching the people in order to get in front of them. If you don't know the people well, it's going to take you longer to make those calls and to be able to reach them. I think in the 40 years I've been in sales, including the last 6 years I've been with Overland Missions raising my own support, I doubt if I've ever had anyone call me back. So you have to keep calling them and just really be persistent. When you look at calling, I think the most effective call times are weekdays from 9 until 11, Saturday mornings from 10 o'clock until 12 p.m., Sunday evenings from 4:30 p.m. till 8 p.m. These are the times that you're going to be most apt to be able to reach your prospect. This formula assumes that you'll reach them on the first call, but it might take 2 to 5 calls in order to reach them. The biggest problem people face in trying to get appointments is what? If you said fear, you are correct. It's fear. Fear of them saying no and it damaging your psyche in the process. Fear of failure is natural. So it's a good idea to pick the ripe apples first, so to speak. Pick the people first that you know are close to you and that you think have the greatest chance in order to support you. You may also want to rehearse the call with friends or family members beforehand in order to get comfortable with it. so it becomes more natural to you. This will build your confidence and quickly increase your support. Good wordsmithing is not automatic. Believe me, it takes practice. Ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen to you? The worst thing that could happen is for the person to say no, is what most people tell me. Or you might lose a friend in the process who starts avoiding you because they might think that you're trying to prospect them all the time. But my experience with no's is that it doesn't mean no forever. It means no at this time. So let's pause just for a minute to each one of you. And I'd like each of you to figure out 3 different prospecting categories that you feel most of your support will come through. Let me give you one, for instance, church friends. So think of 2 other ones, or think of 3 altogether, as to where this support is going to come from and who you know the best in order to ask them. Take just a minute or 2 and write down on a piece of paper those 3. The next thing I would suggest to you is to have a reward for yourself when you've made a certain amount of calls. Now, I didn't say a certain amount of appointments, I said a certain amount of calls, because this is key to making the appointments, is making the calls. What I used to do was to go out and get an ice cream cone when I made my calls in a day or in a week, and that seemed to be a good reward for me, to be able to incent me in order to make the calls in the future. Assign a person for accountability to talk to you weekly about your successes and your failures. A friend of mine was that accountability partner, and he every single week would just really ream me over the coals almost if I didn't come up with my objectives, whether it be number of calls, number of appointments, number of referrals to get from appointments, or the money that I wanted pledged to me that week. And he would talk to me about failures that I came up with, people that said no and why they said no. He would ask me and kind of surmise what type of attitude did I have after hearing no, and he would act as an encouragement. He was so hard on me that his wife even told him, she said, "Hey, you better quit being so tough on Jack or you're going to lose a friend." But you know, I always appreciated him, and to this day I appreciated being able to go to a friend and have him really kick me in the tail end if I needed to be kicked. So that was a good thing. Now, how do we skip some of the calls? You can skip some of the calls if you know that the person that you're prospecting is a person that is on Facebook quite a bit and would rather be contacted that way. Or it might be another way. It might be at church, where you run into a person at church and you ask them then, "Hey, can I meet with you this week? Let's go out to lunch. I want to tell you about the exciting things I'm up to and talking about missions." The easiest way to not justify the calls that you're supposed to make is to start pushing that paper around your desk. Pushing that paper around your desk where you're seemingly busy, but yet you're not really accomplishing your goals in the process. Caleb and Joshua's report of the promised land versus the report of the other 10 tribes and the consequences I think are critical, because you want to look at this from a standpoint of God and Him guiding you and directing you, giving you the incentive in order to be able to make these calls, make these appointments, and to ask for the support that you need. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the untrue myths that I've run into in support raising. Number one is the people with the most money are going to be the people that are going to say yes. Well, you know, that's not necessarily true. How do you think they got all that money? They got all that money by holding on to it and keeping it in their pocket as opposed to pledging it. The second one is the support is all up to me. It's not up to you, it's up to God through you. God is there directing your steps, and you need to know that He's behind you. The next one, the third misnomer, is the hardest money to raise is the first part. No, the hardest money to raise is the last part of the money, because you've already been through all the contacts you have at that stage, and you don't know the people many times that you're prospecting at the very end. The next one is, I will get 4 to 5 big supporters and my support raising will be over. Listen, I can't tell you how many people have thought that, and I thought it myself, but it is very untrue. It's very untrue, and even if you would be able to raise that kind of money between 4 or 5 people, well, those people, 1 or 2 might drop out, and then all of a sudden, panic sets in as a major block of your support is down the drain. The next one is, my prospect will call me back. I left a message. As I mentioned before, I don't know that I've ever had anybody call me back. It's your job to keep calling and to get them on the phone. Hey, surely my family members and best friends will support me. And that's not always the case either, because many times your family or your best friends do not have the same vision that you do as being a missionary. A no answer for support is a reflection on me. That's the next misnomer. That's wrong. It is not a reflection on you. It is maybe that God has not touched their heart the way that we hope He would. Or maybe He has touched their heart and they just said no to Him. Maybe it's the wrong kind of year for them, where maybe they've been laid off, where they don't have the funds to be able to give to you. Number 8 is, the best thing that a prospect could agree to is to support me financially. That is not the best thing that they could agree to. The best thing they could agree to is prayer. Prayer is the most important thing that you can get from these people. It's not money, because prayer changes things. Prayer changes attitudes. It changes your attitude or your prospect's attitude, and that is the key area in raising money. There's no analysis paralysis associated with support raising. Is that correct? No. I know many people that would rather sit behind a desk and shuffle those papers all day, or get involved in an unrelated project that saps up all of their time, and they find out, hey, it's been 2 years and I still don't have my budget raised. Well, sure you don't. You've not worked it hard enough. The 10th thing is, I can just call churches who I don't even know, and I'll raise support through them. Churches are not a real good prospect these days. Matter of fact, only 10% of my support comes from churches. So you need to prospect friends, businesses, and you can do some church also, especially the church that you go to. I haven't talked to that person for 10 years. I can't call them now to get support. They'll think I'm just calling because I'm raising money. Well, I can tell you, when you call the people back and you tell them what you're up to as far as missions, all of a sudden that gap closes of not being able to talk to them for the 10 years. We have many good prospects and many good supporters who I haven't talked to for 10 years, and yet they jumped on board with us. People out of college are terrible prospects. Is that right? Because, they might have a student loan. Well, this is probably in their life the time when they had the least expenses. So they are good prospects, and I would not avoid them. Now, how do we arrange the priority of calls? This is your first step in getting started. What we do is we look at all of our prospect lists, and we divide these prospects into groups A, B, and C. The group A, these are the people who you're most apt to get money from and get the most money from. They are your best prospects. So you're going to put that type of person in group A, and you're going to even rank these people 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe up to 20 in group A. You're going to go right down the list calling these people in order. After you're finished with the A's, you're going to move over to the B category. These are the average types of people. You have an average type of success ratio with them, and you're again going to rank them 1 through 15, 20, whatever it is. The C prospects, these are the last people you're going to contact, because these are the people who you have the least success with in your mind. Maybe you don't know them very well. Maybe you've done some prospecting in the past with them on another unrelated issue. Those are the people that you're going to do last. And that's the C category, your lowest return and the most work that's associated with contacting them. So we start with the A's, go right down the list. Start next with the B's, go right down the list. And go next with the C's and go right down your list. Now, what do you say to a prospective prospect? Well, you talk to them a little bit like you're their best friend. The number one thing that you need to do is set the rapport with these people up front. So let me give you an example. Hello, Bill. This is Jack. How are you? Hey, listen, I saw your cute little girl at church last week with you and your wife. Wow, she is really getting big, and I know she's really a joy to both of you. How old is she now? Now, that's the first paragraph. That's the paragraph you're setting a rapport with the people, getting them to think about something that's very, very dear to their heart, their little girl. The next paragraph, we're going to get into the reason for calling. The reason I'm calling you is, as you may have heard, that I've been seeking God's direction for my life, and He has confirmed through many avenues that I am to pursue the foreign mission field. So recently I've been through 3 months of intense training in missions. I've been on a number of other missions trips, and I'm excited to share my vision, full-time missionary, and to be able to reach my financial goals with people such as you. I would like to meet with you for about 30 minutes, let's say next Wednesday of next week, for lunchtime, and just talk to you a little bit about what my vision is and get your advice on it. So this is a sample script. You can make up your own, but what I would suggest to you is I would suggest going over that script over and over again where it seems natural to you. You can read it as long as it doesn't sound read. So you might put in an here or an there in order to really sound natural. Now let's talk about objections for a minute. Jesus gave us the key in answering an objection. You answer it with a question. That's a tremendous technique. Give you an example. In the Bible, on one occasion, an expert in the law asked Jesus, "What must I do to go to heaven?" Jesus answered by saying, "What is it written in the law?" Jesus followed up with another question to say, "How do you read the law?" We see this in John chapter 10, verses 25 and 26. So I'm going to read a few of the objections that I've run into and that I know that are out there. And I want you, in your own mind, to come up with an answer for this objection, asking me a question. My first objection: I can't afford to support your ministry. You might say, I can understand that. The economy is not helping any of us. What amount did you have in mind that is too much in your mind? The second one is, thanks for the lunch invitation, but I do not have time for lunch. I'm going to pause on each one of these for you to come up with your own question. And then I'm going to tell you one that maybe I've used in the past. Well, can we meet for breakfast instead then? And asking if you can come to their house, they might say, "Oh, I have young children. It wouldn't be possible." They'd be interrupting us all the time. You might say, "Well, can we meet you for coffee then, outside of your house, at a time convenient for you?" You know, I'm sure your pictures of Africa are nice, but I don't have time. You know, I can understand that. I know your time is valuable. Your time's valuable, and I'd be glad to meet you for breakfast or lunch or after work sometime. I'd love to show you the pictures that I have. Would that be a good time for you? I do not give referrals to other people. Oh, okay. Can I ask you why not? Have you had a bad experience with it? You know, I'm not really comfortable praying for you at the end. Okay, that's fine. Do you mind if I pray for you and for your family? Oh, Jack, I can't meet next week. Oh, that's fine. Can we meet later this week? Is that better for you? Oh, Jack, the money towards a $15,000 car, that's a lot of money to raise. Yes, it is a lot of money, but you know, don't you think, as I do, that God is capable of doing it? I know I'm in His will. I give a large sum of money to the church for missions already. Oh, really? Where do your missionaries serve? My office is too hectic for a meeting with you. Oh, very good. Why don't we plan on meeting for lunch then outside the office? Oh, it's funny you should ask me to join you for coffee. I don't like coffee. Great, what about hot tea? What about lunch? Hey, what does my wife have to do with us meeting together to talk about missions? She might not have anything to do with it, or she might be, as other people say, that they have to consult their wife. Is that the situation here? My children are at a time when expenses are high. Oh, I can understand that. I can understand. I remember when my children were that age, and do you see the light through the end of the tunnel? I can tell you it is there. I coach my son's baseball team. Do not have time to meet. Oh, I can understand that. Can I even meet you at the baseball diamond after practice? I would hate for you to have to come all the way out here for a no answer. Oh, yeah, I can understand that, but you know, it's worth my time. What if your answer is yes? And I would still like to pray with you and your family, even if it is no. I give all the tithes and offerings to my church, might be the next objection. Oh, that's wonderful. I wouldn't begin to suggest you replacing your tithes with me. But let me ask you, is it a situation where you might look at what we do and might have a direct hand in it in seeing our newsletters and feel more like you're part of it? Oh, I'm not geared towards foreign missions. Oh, really? Do you support local missions? The last missionaries I supported, they never updated me with their progress. Oh, is that important to you? Yes, we do it every month or every 2 months. There are plenty of needs for missions in the United States. I don't see why you need to go abroad. Let me ask you a question. If God was telling you to go abroad to foreign missions, would you still do local missions within the United States? Are you going to ask for more and more money each time I give, like the other missionaries? I will ask for it occasionally, but I will not be a pest. Have you had a missionary that was pesting you, being a pest all the time? This is a bad time for you to call, Jack. I'm very busy. What is a good time? How can I support foreign missions when I have never been there? Would you have a better feel for them if I showed you our slides of the mission field? Then you would feel like you were there, especially with our videos. Now, as head of our mission board, we already have 15 missionaries, and our budget is depleted. Do any of your missionaries drop out over the course of time? If so, I would like to replace them with my wife and myself. Oh, Jack, you know it's cheaper to finance a local missionary that lives in the area as opposed to you flying back and forth. It might be cheaper, but do you think it is as effective? Pastors tell me abroad that it is not as effective because we are coming all the way from the United States. So the first strategy in countering these types of objections is to ask a question to a question. Asking a question to a question, it in a sense disarms the people and it lets down their guard in effect. There are other things that you can do, and one of them is writing out a response, a retort to any types of these objections that you have. Jack, this is a bad day. I'd say, I can understand that. How about such and such a day at such and such a time? Jack, I have to check my calendar. Get back to me next week. Listen, I can understand that. Can I call you on Monday at 8:30 in the morning when you have access to your calendar? Jack, I don't have any money. I just gave a lot of money to the church. I can understand that the economy is not great at this stage, but I can tell you that the money that is pledged to us is money that is well spent, and we are very, very good stewards with that money. I believe God will reward you for it. He talks about that so many times in the Bible. Jack, I give through missions of the church. I can understand that. I'm so thankful that your church supports missionaries, and I'm so thankful that you, as part of your tithe, are giving to that. Because I've seen that God really rewards those people who support missions and those churches who support missions. Jack, my heart is for home missions. For home missions, I can understand that. These people are ministering to the people around you. But a lot of these government programs, they also minister to the people around them. And where I am, they have no government types of programs to be able to support them. And that's one reason foreign missions are so effective and so needed. Jack, what is your financial goal? I don't want to support a sinking ship. I would say to you that my financial goal is definitely within reach, especially with God being behind me. With God, when He is for us, who can be against us? Am I right? He is a God that makes a way where there is no way. So I'm confident that we can raise this budget, and we would certainly like to have you as a partner with us in that process. Jack, we have all the missionaries we need. We support 15 of them with our church, the person on the board says. And I would say to them, but do you ever have missionaries drop off? Do you ever have them decide they don't want to be a missionary anymore, or maybe they even die on the field? If that is the case, I can tell you that it is money well spent in supporting us on that foreign mission field. We will keep right up to date with you. I want to tell you about a story that is something I just made up, but you can get the gist of it. The devil once had an estate sale for prospective missionaries. Posted with some reasonable prices were all of his tools like greed, envy, jealousy, pride, immorality. Off in the corner, though, was an item with flashing lights to call attention to it. And this item was priced lower than any other item. And I noticed the item was called discouragement. Discouragement. Well, one of the prospective missionaries asked why the bright lights and the low price, to which the devil replied, because it is my most effective tool to get the prospective missionaries to quit and to go on to unrelated types of careers. They can recover from these other tools like greed, envy, jealousy, and pride, but my deep root goes into discouragement in these people, and many times they never come back to the mission field. That is why it's so effective and is priced so low. Well, God, on the other hand, He went to this estate sale also. He came to this estate sale and He spoke to this prospective missionary. And He said, I have a tool that counteracts all of the devil's tools he has just mentioned to you. He said, I call it Scripture. And it is there in the Bible to encourage you and to lift you up. Let's look at a few of these verses now. A few of these verses are, no weapon formed against you will prosper. God has made you more than a conqueror. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and greater is He who is in me than he who is in the world. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened to you. Whatever you ask for when you pray, believe that you have received it, and you shall have it. I would suggest making a list of any of your other favorite strategies or favorite scriptures, I meant to say, just to keep those close at hand. Begin reading them as you go through your prospect lists, as you make your phone calls. You'll find them to be a tremendous encouragement to you. In closing, I believe if Jesus were here now, He would say to you what John the Baptist said to his disciples. He would say to you, "Are you the one that I've been expecting, or should I look to someone else?" That's what his disciples said. And that's what John the Baptist said, to his disciples. They said, "No, this is the one to come." And I believe that you are the ones to come, whether it's the mission field or whether God is encouraging you to go out on another ministry. You are the one to come, and God is going to anoint you in that process. But a few things. God needs to know if He can trust you. He needs to know if He can trust you on the mission field, and right now is your first test as to whether He can trust you or not. You know, I look back on the first time that I had raised support before coming to Africa. It was terrifying to me. I've got to tell you, even though I was a salesperson for 40-something years, I should have been used to this. I should have been comfortable with it. But I was not real comfortable with it because all of us fear turning someone off and losing friends in the process. I want to ask you now, how deep is your calling to the mission field or to the respective types of ministry where God is calling? Are you willing to lose a few friends in the process who might think Jack is just after me for money? Are you willing to just continue to make those calls even though many times you've heard no in the process? God is testing you as to your motivation to become a missionary or do another ministry as to how He has called you. And when I think about all the calls that I've made, my goal was in between 10 and 15 appointments per week to be able to make these appointments. If I didn't make them, and my mentor, he would be very upset with me, and I didn't want to disappoint him, and I didn't want to disappoint God. But I can tell you that once you reach that certain goal of reaching your support, you will be going to the next level spiritually. You will be looking back and saying, "God, thank you for being there for me." It will give you tremendous confidence when you do end up on the mission field or in your respective area of ministry. You will look back on these times and say, "Yes, God truly was there with me. He truly was there leading me, opening the doors for me. And God, I thank you for that. I thank you for being there for me. I thank you for saying that you never leave me nor forsake me. I thank you, Lord, for opening the doors." And Lord, the doors that did not open, I pray that I still have had an impact on that person. I pray that I've had an impact on them and that they would never forget this meeting. The most important thing that you can do for the people when you do meet with them is you pray at the end of the meeting. You pray at the end of the meeting and you tell them also, "Listen, if you decide not to partner with me, please will you pray for me?" And when they say yes, you've let them off the hook, you've kept a friend, and you are miles ahead in the process. Amen.